yo, don't get hot at me, but like, I'm not mad at the folks that's just getting pissed about Ariel being black. I'm not mad at them, but it's not for the reasons that you think. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and click the subscribe button and click the bell for notifications when I post a new video. And if you are on Facebook, search for KimAllNaturelle to join our support group for tips, to ask questions, and to get support. I'm so happy that my childhood is going to continue to, you know, show itself in my adulthood. People getting mad about Halle Bailey. Half of the sister duo group, Chloe and Halle, who were YouTube, you know, stars. You know, they did a lot of covers, but then they got discovered by Beyonce and signed up to her label. I'm gonna keep this video real short. I'm neither excited or pissed about the casting. In all actuality, like, look, the stories that Disney tell are never truly historically accurate or even completely the same as where, you know, the stories that they took their inspiration from. So I'm not really like, if people are gonna be pissed that she turned black, they gotta be pissed that, you know, the prince doesn't die at the end too. That was the original story from the writer Hans Christian, I forgot his name, the Danish guy who wrote the story a long time ago. But here's my thing. When we say representation, it's not just taking a known character or a known story and just putting blackface on it. That is not representation. And I'm kind of starting to get pissed off because, first of all, mermaids is not a mystical creature that is only known to Europeans or Danish. Mermaids, there are so many cultures around the world, a lot of black cultures that have so many urban legends, fables about mermaids. Like, I'm Haitian, okay? I've heard of the stories of the Sigh at the sea, you know, the killer mermaids that will kill men. And there was even a rock that my grandma told me a story that there's a rock in between, I think, Haiti and Bahamas. Don't specifically know exactly where. And my grandma was a sailor, and my grandfather was a sailor. My great-grandfather was a sailor. And she would tell me a story about, you know, when sailors, like when people would go knocking on this rock, the sailor and the mermaids would pull them down, and depending on whether or not the mermaids were benevolent or evil, they would let go of them if the human being answered their question that they asked in a way to show that they were pure of heart. And if they weren't pure of heart, the bad mermaids would literally just kill you, but the good mermaids will like just turn you into a merman, if that makes sense. But like, there's so many fables and stories about mermaids from so many black cultures around the world. So I feel as though if you want to tell a story, like, there's so much rich history and stories from the African continent, from the African diaspora. Like, why do we have to blacken a story that was told from a Danish man? Like, there's so many stories out there. And this kind of brings me to another thing. I know I'm ranting right now. It's just the fact that there's so many countries in Africa, and I wished that we would export our mystical, you know, historical and mystical, you know, creations. Like, I love Nollywood, okay? I love African movies. I was in that craze when African movies were the bomb. My mom and I and my dad, we used to like watch so many African movies, like so many African movies. And but I realized, like, that other than a few Nigerian movies that are on Netflix, there are not a lot of exports of stories that are historic or even, you know, sharing that mystical tales that is passed on from generation to generation through oral history. You know, I wish we had that. Like, I love King Arthur. That's why I love Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, like, I love fantasy and I love fiction. Game of Thrones is a good mixture of both because it takes historical context. It has a historical context to it. You know, the War of the Roses in Europe, to, you know, them fighting for whatever crown or power, whatever they did back in Europe done. You know what I'm saying? But then they added that fantasy to it. And I honestly do believe that urban legends and tales of fables, tales of mysticism are rooted in historical context. And I feel as though through oral traditions, passing them down, they become a little bit more romanticized, a little bit more fantasized. But the fact is, there is a continent so many African countries, and maybe I'm wrong. If you know of stories that are being shared from the continent, from the diaspora, showing our cultural mysticism and fanaticism, I would really like to, you know, share that with me. I know there's a YouTube channel here, YouTuber, his channel name is Home Team History. I enjoy that channel so much because I love learning about, you know, the various ethnic groups, the histories. There's like kings and queens. Europe is not the only place that had kings and queens. There's so many kingdoms in the African continent historically, and then, like, come on, man, like, I want to see these stories. I'm so happy that my Asian brothers and sisters, you know, I've learned a lot about, you know, the dynasties in Asia, in China and things of that sort, and Genghis Khan and all that stuff. But I would love to see some of that from my African brothers and sisters, or even the ones that were spread out through, whether it's travel or colonialism or slave Atlantic trade. You know, I want to hear our stories. So I'm excited that there is going to be, you know, a representation from my, thinking about my younger cousins and my siblings who are like not even able to speak yet. I'm happy that they're able to see themselves on the screen, but I really would prefer to have a story from our people be put into the forefront, and not necessarily through Disney. Like, Disney doesn't really keep the stories how they're written, but I would love for us to tell our tales a little bit more. So that's how I feel about the whole Not My Ariel thing. It is what it is, but I just want to encourage my brothers and sisters, my African brothers and sisters in the diaspora and in the continent, the creative types. If you're a director, if you're a producer, please bring out some of the stories from our own countries and cultures. Thanks for tuning in. So I did mention about the channel on YouTube, Home Team History. I'm gonna put a link to his channel on the bottom. Please support him. He has really good content. I love learning more about, you know, the various tribes in Africa, and also the histories and the fables that those tribes and other ethnicities in Africa have shared. And I do want to shout out another African brethren who recently wrote a book called Children of Blood and Bone. I have not read it yet, but I have it in my Amazon cart because I want to read it and pass it on to all my younger cousins and my siblings. Children of Blood and Bone is sort of a mirror image of, you know, Harry Potter for us black folks. Like, it's very culturally sound and grounded in cultural traditions and things. So the author's name is Tommy Adeyemi, and I'll put the name of the book and the author's name and the link to the book on Amazon so you can read more about it. So there are some folks in the diaspora, part of the African, you know, tribe of the world, that are doing this, but I wish there was more of us. So if you are creative, again, this is my charge to you. Use your platform to bring more cultural sharing, because if we don't do it ourselves, you know, someone else is going to come around and take it and claim it as their own, like they have done for many of our stuff already. So let's just try to share our own stuff within our own spaces, within our own media outlets, so that our children can see themselves. Hollywood is never going to fix their representation problem, because Hollywood was never meant for us. It was meant for them, by them, and to serve them and entertain them. So just wanted to share that tidbit, and thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you at the next video.